Hello and welcome to the last video in our series of NetSim tutorials. In this video I will show you how we can use NetSim to display the dynamic behavior of our nodes over time using the chart function. Let's start by opening a network as usual. We go to Menu, Open, and I will choose the shared network with code B082. This network was created by Tyler of Sepien, one of our seasoned undergraduate students taking a genetics class, and represents a small molecular network controlling the activity of a transcription factor called FOXO. The first thing that we need to do to display the behavior of a network is to select one or more nodes whose dynamic behavior we would like to display. Notice that if you don't have any active nodes in your network, the chart button is grayed out. NetSim allows you to look at the behavior of one node at a time or more than one node simultaneously. To begin, let's look at only one node. I will tap on this node here called mTorque1. Notice how now the chart button and the time window lit up. If we now tap on chart, NetSim will show us the behavior of this node over 50 time iterations. On the x-axis, we have time iterations from 0 to 50. And the y-axis represents the abundance for the chosen node, from its start value of 5, and through each of its changes in abundance as calculated based on this node's parameters and its inputs from other nodes in the network. The chart function in NetSim is rather versatile, so let's go through some of its features slowly. When you're in single node view mode, you can tap and hold anywhere on the graph and NetSim will show you a line with the exact time point and the node's value at that time point on top. In fact, if you hold your tap and slide your finger over the graph to either side, NetSim will continuously show you the changing time points and the corresponding values for a node at each of them. Please bear in mind that this feature exists only in single node view. Let's now go through some of the functions on the upper banner of your graph. To the left, we have a big, bold X. Here's where you tap to exit the chart mode. When you do, NetSim takes you back to the map, and your active node is still active and blinking. So we can quickly go back to the graph by tapping on chart again. To the right, we have a zoom time window with a little zoom icon. If you tap on the window, you can enter the value for a given time point that you're interested in inspecting a little closer, and NetSim will center the graph around your chosen time and show you the values for this node within a range of 10 time iterations before and after. For example, let's tap on this window and write 15. When we tap on the magnifying glass icon, NetSim will show us the same graph but zoomed in around time 15, showing us the range of values from time equal 5 to time equal 25. Notice that the zoom window disappeared and the magnifying glass now shows a minus sign on it. Tapping on this zoom out icon will take us back to the original graph. And speaking of timescales, NetSim shows 50 time iterations by default, but we can choose a different number of iterations. Let's suppose we'd like to see the behavior of this node over 300 iterations. To do that, we first exit the graph by tapping on the X, and then we tap on the time window below the chart button. Now NetSim allows us to change the number of iterations to display. We'll go from 50 to 300. And when we tap on Go, NetSim will show us the dynamic behavior for the same node but over 300 time iterations instead of 50. Let's try the sliding line and zoom functions again. Let's say that we get really curious about these turning points in the abundance of this node and would like to inspect them in a bit more detail. To find out at what time they take place, we can tap on the graph and slide the bar until it's over any of these local minima. Here, for instance, NetSim tells us that the turn takes place at time 118. So we can now go into the zoom window and ask NetSim to show us a zoomed-in version of the graph around time 118 and inspect it in more detail. we can now see what happened to this node shortly before and after it took a turn. Let's zoom out again. Finally, in single node view mode, we have the last values switch. If we turn on this switch, NetSim will show us on the same graph the values for a node that correspond to the current parameters of our network and what the behavior of this node looked like based on some previous set of parameters. Right now, and because we have not modified any of the nodes or connections in this network, if we flick this switch on and off, nothing happens. That is actually because the two curves overlap. But let's get out of graph mode and change some parameters for this node. We could, for instance, change its production rate to 3.5. And we could change the strength of this inbound connection to 0.035. If we now ask NetSim to chart this node again, and we flick the last value switch on, we now see two curves. The color one corresponds to the dynamic behavior of this node given its current parameters. The black line corresponds to the node's behavior with the previous parameters. This may be about the most powerful feature of NetSim, because it allows you to very quickly determine how changes to the parameters of your network affect the behavior of a given node. I should point out that in order to keep graph displays a little simpler, NetSim offers the last values feature only in single node view. Alright, let's go back to our network map and let's take a look at how we can display a graph for more than one node at a time. To select multiple nodes, you can either use the Select Multiple Nodes button, or you can tap and hold on any node in your network. Either way, NetSim will take you into multiple selection mode. In this mode, you can select one or a few nodes by tapping on them. Every node that you tap will be selected and will start blinking. If you would actually like to look at all the nodes in your network at once, you can take a shortcut and tap on Select All at the top. And one more trick. If you have a network with many nodes and you'd like to look at most of them but not all, you can use the Select All button to temporarily select them all and then deselect specific ones by briefly tapping on them. At any time, if you'd like to start over, you can use the Clear Selection button to deselect all the nodes and start from scratch. Once you've selected your nodes, tap on Chart. And NetSim will now show you a graph with one line for each selected node that you wanted to display. Needless to say, the lines respect the colors assigned to your nodes in the network map. When NetSim is displaying more than one node at once, some of the graph features are no longer available. For instance, we can no longer tap and hold anywhere on the graph and get that blue line that will give us the exact value corresponding to each time point. We cannot display curves that correspond to last values either. The only feature that is maintained is the zoom tool, and it works the same as in single node mode. You can zoom in to a specific time point plus and minus 10 iterations. In multiple selection mode, we can still change the number of iterations of our simulation. We get out of the graph mode, we tap on the time window, and change the number of cycles to whatever we want. And that is all there is to looking at the behavior of many nodes at once. If you've mastered the graphical display for a single node, you'll have no trouble displaying the behavior of several nodes in your network at once. Once you're done looking at multiple nodes and you would like to go back to your network map, perhaps to change your network or some of its parameters, you need to tap on Done. This is the only way to get out of the multiple selection mode. Excellent. you have now made it through all of our video tutorials. I would first like to thank you for having taken the time to check out these videos, and I honestly hope that you found them useful and that they've inspired you to continue using NetSim in both your studies and your research. Best of luck with your project, and I hope that you have a lot of fun mapping and simulating your favorite networks. Goodbye now.